Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another edition on this Wednesday evening um, for Paranormal Brew. I'm your host, Taryn Hamby. Now I am. But I am your host, and every Wednesdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for that Destination Spooky. Yes, I am only 15 subs away. I don't know what'll happen after that, but but thank you. Anyway, yeah, it seems like I don't know who's watching and who isn't watching. So if you are, just say hello because normally I get a count up here, and I don't know, there's something wrong with the internets tonight, I think. Um, anyway, I have again one of my most favorite guests of all time. He's been on a few times. I love him. I love having him on. He's funny. His storytelling is awesome, and his knowledge just blows my mind. He's literally a walking encyclopedia of everything. You ask him a question, he knows it, and it's just amazing. So he's an investigator with a passion for peeling back the veil between history and the unknown. He's an accomplished author, historian, and a seasoned paranormal researcher. Ron Murphy brings a scholar's eye and an adventurous heart on his quest into the unexplained. Armed with a master's degree in history, he dives deep into legends, folklore, and the mysteries that ripple through human civilization. His lifelong fascination with ancient cultures fuels his search for the hidden connections between our earliest ancestors and the supernatural tales that still captivate us today. With electrifying storytelling and razor sharp insight, Ron Murphy Jr. invites listeners on a thrilling journey through time, myth, the supernatural, and the unexplained. And tonight, we are going to be talking about Christmas, the spooky stories behind Christmas. And without further ado, I am going to bring on my very good friend, most awesome Ron Murphy.
Hello there, Taryn. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Well, I was a little afraid, to tell you the truth, whenever I attempted to log in and I could only see your mouth moving and your eloquent words were not leaving your lips. So we have everything together now. Hopefully it will last for the rest of the night because we have some cool things to talk about.
Yes, we do. And I uh definitely want to I'm loving the subject. Spooky
Mhm.
Christmas is literally 3 weeks away. It's crazy how
Mhm.
quickly and how fast this is happening. um but spooky Christmas, I do know that there's I've heard of religious stuff, from how some of the Christmas stuff has come about, the candy cane and 12 days of Christmas, and this and that, but a spooky Christmas.
You know what? I never really considered Christmas a spooky time of the year until I heard that gosh darn song. It's the most wonderful time of the year, right? It starts playing, kids are caroling, and there's people drinking chocolate, hot chocolate, and all this stuff. And then there's that curious line about telling ghost stories from Christmases long, long ago. And I thought, who in the hell did that? We didn't do that as kids. We put up a tree and we put some bulbs on it and everything, but not one time did anybody tell a ghost story. And as I began to research the folklore behind that, I found out that, gosh darn it, there was a vast tradition going back well into the Middle Ages about people gathering together around the time of Christmas and telling ghost stories. We can see Shakespeare alluding to this. We can see other playwrights as well. Christopher Marlowe alluding to this as well too, in the Renaissance. And of course, we have that curious Christmas song by Perry Como, and done by various other people. But when we look at the Victorian tradition and we look at A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, that is really kind of what summarizes everything when we talk about this time of the year. It's a time of introspection, and it's also the beginning. Quite real new a new year is coming as well too. So I think that that's what we're talking about when we're facing the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future.
Interesting. So you're saying that this goes back ways. So where did this all start with Christmas having a? I mean, we also have even more of a the Nightmare Before Christmas with
Mhm.
Jack, and you know what I mean.
That's
So we
right.
even have even newer versions of a creepy, scary Christmas, which I love Jack, by the way. But
For
where
sure, sure.
where did all this start? How did
Yeah.
this all come to be?
Right. So these are all great questions. No, so it comes to be well before it was Christmas, right? Before Christianity spread, it goes back to its very pagan roots. We are dealing with a society that created this understanding that Christmas was a haunted time because it was connected to the agriculture of the land, right? They were tied to the land itself. And this was beginning a very frightening time. We're talking about the Vikings. We're talking about the Druids. If there could seriously be, I mean, there were definitely Druids, but as much what they believed really wasn't written down by Druids themselves. It was only commentaries by Romans. So we really do not know what the Druids practiced, but we know that the Celts, and we know that the Anglo Saxons, and of course, like I said, the Norse as well, all had traditions that was really focused on this time of the year. But one of the last times we talked, it was over Halloween, right? And that was really a major festival in the agricultural calendar as well. October 31st, it marks the time whenever the sun is going to be dying, quite literally. I mean, I live in Western Pennsylvania, and the sun started to go down and was almost completely set by 4:30 here. That's crazy to think. And I've been to England before in January, and I know that the sun starts setting there at about 3:30. So the farther north you go, when we get into the Vikings, there's hardly any sunlight whatsoever. So whenever we talk about Halloween, we're talking about that the life-giving sun is now coming to an end, right? And they celebrated this with bonfires and trying to coax the sun back to give its warmth onto the land and everything, because without the sun, it's a very, very frightening time. People die during this time of the year. It's very cold. There's not a lot of animals around anymore because you had to slaughter them because of the lack of pasturing and everything like that. So we're in this time of the year now where it's the dead of winter, right? And we are scared because we still have a few more months to go until we have spring coming around. So what happens is this time of the year we have the festival of Yule that's being celebrated, especially by Scandinavian cultures. And Yule, really, we don't know where that word comes from. But it's definitely a 12-day celebration, adapted from, where we adapt from the 12 days of Christmas from. And this was a time whenever people gathered together, they got a very log, a Yule log, probably an oak tree or something like that, and they were hoped to burn that log for about 12 days in a row to honor the entire Yule. And this was a representation of the sun returning again. So we have Halloween whenever the sun is dying, and then around midwinter, December 21st, which is actually the first day of winter, that is whenever it starts getting lighter every day by a minute or so. So we know that when we hit the very peak so going back, it's odd because midsummer is also the first day of summer and midwinter is the first day of winter. But in an agricultural calendar, this is the midway until the next planting season. Okay, so it's a little weird like that. So midsummer is halfway in to the fruition of the entire planting season, and midwinter is halfway in until we start planting again. So that's why that goes. So we have a magical thing happening on December 21st, which is the equinox, and or not the equinox. It's the solstice, right? Yeah, the winter solstice. So what is happening now is um, uh, from a astronomical point of view, the days are now getting longer. And if I were president of the world, which I know I could never be, but I would change the New Year's Day from January 1st to December 21st, because that truly does mark in the celestial calendar of a brand new year coming about.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So the Yule is being burned for these 12 days, right?
Yes.
So that brings us to what? Like if they started on December 21st, right?
Right.
12 days. That brings us to what? January.
Yeah, third, so right, that's a good point that you're making there. So right around the where we celebrate New Year's Day, right? So that would take up those periods between Christmas time, which we celebrate now, but the 21st, right around until like the second or third of our present January.
Okay. So then
Yeah.
so then did people then adapt to this Yule, the burning of the log and the Yule, and this is how, like how did we end up with, you know, the idea of, Scrooge
Right.
and the ghosties, and like
Mm.
how did we end up with this? I mean, and you're saying it goes back, and obviously we don't know about the Druids. It's just commentary from the Romans, and but they were very spiritual people as well.
They
Um,
were. That's right.
so they thought that there was a God for everything, and they were
Mm.
very spiritual, and they were also very, I mean, did they celebrate anything like a Christmas?
Right. Well, so not like a Christmas, but they celebrated rebirth, which was extremely important in the ancient pagan world. So they knew that this was not going to be the end. And even though things are looking pretty perilous outside, there is at least a promise of a tomorrow, right? There's a promise of a summer that is coming. And what is also happening in this time of the year, and I keep on referring to Halloween because these traditions are very closely related. What happens around the time of solstices and equinoxes as well is that the veil between this world and the next it's thinning again, right? And it allows creatures and other types of beings from the other side to come on over into our world. And these beings, these entities, have knowledge that we do not know, right? They know about what kind of crops we're going to be having, or if it's going to be a successful harvest, right? They have this omniscience that is gathered from the world of the dead, that now they are able to cross on over and communicate this to us. So that's one of the very important elements as well. And not only that, but in Norse mythology, we have something called the wild hunt, which is prominent right around, this time of the year too, right around December 21st. And this is that you really don't want to be caught outside. There's a lot of practicality to this. In a time without electricity and without centralized heat, you're kind of stuck out there. So if you go out for a little walk, especially children, you go out, you're playing in the snow, all of a sudden you forget yourself and a winter storm blows in very quickly. Well, that might be your last snowball fight, right? This might be it. So the idea of the wild hunt was this. We know that in the bleak midwinter, whenever the lights go down and the sun sets, that things are abounding, right? There's chaos to the natural world. And Odin, who was the All Father, the supreme god of the Norse, would actually take his sleigh and ride it across the landscape, accompanied by spirits of the dead, accompanied by elves and fairies. And they would be representative almost of a winter storm, if you can imagine, sweeping over the landscape. And anything that was left out in its way was consumed by this unstoppable force, and it was consumed by them, and they were carried away. So if you were not careful and you were not minding what you were doing, if you would go out at the wrong time, it was very plausible that you would be swept up by the other and taken away and never be seen again.
So a sleigh and being guided. So it's almost like Santa and the sleigh. So is that where that kind of originated from? Was this whole
You've hit the nail on the proverbial head, my dear. Yes, absolutely. The reason why I love to be on this program is because you know what you're talking about. So when we talk about Santa Claus,
yeah.
when we talk about the idea of Saint Nicholas, we see the first kernel of this figure planted deeply in the fertile soil of paganism. And if you did not have the Allfather, if you did not have Odin, who was representative of having this long white beard that would ride around on a sleigh, sometimes pulled by reindeer even, then we would not have the Santa Claus that we know now. Now, oftentimes Odin is depicted in wearing a white garment and not a red garment. But this time of the year, in order to appease the world, oftentimes animal sacrifices were being had. So you could imagine Odin in his white garment now being drenched in the red blood of sacrifice, riding across the sky in his chariot. And if you were not a good little girl or a good little boy, you would be taken away and never seen again.
Well, now, isn't that, excuse me, not you, isn't that similar to Krampus?
Bingo. Same culture that we're dealing with here. Same exact people. We're dealing with a pagan culture. Krampus probably goes back at least 2,000 years, if not more. And we see this figure at once to be a terrifying figure. And he has a little bit of sex appeal to him. So even whenever Christianity comes in, we don't want to throw this figure away. We want to use him in some way because he's such an interesting figure. So he becomes almost the dichotomy of Santa Claus, although they work together. They come out on St. Nicholas Day, which I believe is the 4th, if I'm not mistaken. So this Saturday, and they come to the home, and Santa Claus and his little companion. Oh, hold on one second. I'm sorry. There's something going on here. Hold on one second. I'm having a bit of a. Hold on one second. Hold on one second, guys. Hold
on.
Okay, are we there?
Yep, we're there.
Sorry about that. I was having a terrible technological disaster here right whenever I was talking about Krampus. So I'm sorry. See, I think that I might have been visited by Krampus himself. But okay, so going back. So we have Santa Claus visiting with his horned buddy, the Krampus, who, they knock at the door. They come on in. And basically, if the child has been good, he's rewarded by Santa Claus, right? By Saint Nicholas. And if the child has been bad, his reward now is given to him by the Krampus. So the Krampus isn't necessarily evil. He's just giving the children what they deserve, right? And if the children are very bad, he will even put them in his sack and take them for sinning it. But usually children aren't bad enough to be taken away forever. Usually they're just naughty enough to be beaten by whips and chains or by sticks.
How? Like, is there like any documentation that this ever really happened, or is this just folklore story?
Right. So I think it's a folklore story. I don't think that there's any documentation of an upright goat-like figure coming to a person's home and beating the
Right.
children. I don't think that would happen. Right. But in ancient mythology, you look at the Greco-Roman tradition as well. The goat is a very lascivious animal, right? It's an animal known for its unwanted sexual desires, and it almost represents a piece of our humanity that we keep domesticated, right? That we don't show to the world. So Krampus is kind of like the unbridled human state of being, and that's the part of us that can lead to sin. And especially after Christianity took over, this is a great figure to be paired up with Santa Claus because it's a reminder that in order for us to get our reward both here and in the afterlife, it's up to us to be good. We earn our reward. And I think that's what Krampus represents.
We have a question from Destination Spooky. Did the Nords and the pagans ever commingle with each other? Did they
Okay,
just
so
did
yeah,
they
so that's I'm sorry, did the oh the Nord so the Nordic folk, the Vikings, and the Vikings just was not one culture. We find Vikings in Scandinavia, and Denmark and Sweden and all these places. So we're talking about a very vast ranging culture that we throw the moniker of Viking upon. So these folks were pagan. They were pagan probably up until about 800. So only for about 1200 years have they been Christian. And we know that the Vikings visited no sorry Newfoundland in Canada around 1000. We know that there's a place called Lonesome Meadow, which it has been proven unequivocally that this is indeed a Viking settlement, and it dates back to 1000 A.D. So a little over 1,000 years ago. And this was a time whenever the Vikings were indeed Christian, but we find artifacts that show a blending of Christianity and paganism, even at that time as well too. So they weren't completely sold on this whole Jesus idea yet. They were still kind of hedging their bets. So sometimes you'll see a cross. Also tied into the symbol of Thor's hammer as well. So we have these different mixtures of ideologies going on as well too. The Northmen, the Vikings, were the pagans, right? And when we talk about were they able to commingle with other groups like the Celts, for instance, who were also a pagan group? Absolutely, because we have Celtic sites not only in Ireland, in Scotland, and in England, where you typically think of the Celts, but you also find their sites in Italy as well too, in Spain, and even as far as Israel. So the Celts were a very far-flung culture, and it was usually based upon some sort of linguistics, is how we come about denoting the Celtic culture. So these cultures, even though we're talking about like our last show, we're talking about ancient history. They were not they were worldly people, right? They were not just concentrated on one spot. There was still trading going on and everything. So they were more worldly than we can imagine.
yeah. So he also asked, did they discover one another, or did they not exist in the same period of time?
Oh yes, they would have definitely have known about one another, definitely without a doubt. Now, they would also share not only in trade, because whenever you trade, you also trade in ideas as well too. So the Celtic culture and the culture of the Vikings is all going to trade ideas, and of course, whenever we have Christianity come into the mix as well too, those ideas all get traded as well, and we know that. Look, so we know that Jesus, if you read the Bible, was not born in December, right? And the reason that why we know this is because we find in the Gospel of Luke that the shepherds were out watching their flocks as they were grazing at night, and in the Middle East, it sometimes snows there. So in order for shepherds to be out in the pastures at night, this had to be whenever animals went out to pasture, which was the summertime. So Jesus was probably born in the summer. But whenever Christianity started spreading out, we still loved these pagan ideas. We love the idea that this is the birth of a new life, right? We love that the birth of the sun, S-O-N, can now, or S-U-N, can now be the birth of the sun, S-O-N. So there's this great thing called synchronization that takes place. And it's basically a la carte. I love the idea of Jesus being born as the savior of the earth, that he's going to be the light of the world. So let's take that and juxtapose that during the Yule period, whenever the sun is returning again. So that's the reason why we have Jesus' birthday on December 25th, is because the light is now returning to a darkened world.
Interesting. Interesting. Now, with Krampus, does Krampus have the same thing? Is it kind of the same thing? Like the story, like the backstory. Like we know, like Santa came about. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so religious people, this is all about Jesus being born,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like Christmas is about Jesus being born, midnight masses, and celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you have the not so religious people who are like Santa, presents, Christmas trees, families together, dinners, and Christmas, buy gifts, you know. So I don't know how I don't know how to ask this, but so with the Krampus side of things. So Krampus is like Santa. What was Jesus still the religious side to that, or was it?
Yeah, I see what. Yeah, absolutely. So Jesus is always going to have this religious side, right? So it wasn't that he was very much conflated with other types of mythology, right? Jesus was going to be Jesus, except the places where he is now being placed is in a liturgical calendar that is borrowed from the pagan world, right? So it makes sense to people that are trying to that the church wants to convert. We don't want to go in here and tell these people you're going to worship Jesus now unquestionably. We also want to give them a little bit of stuff to work with as well too. So you are coming out of this pagan culture, we're going to now introduce you to Jesus. You can keep your Yule and you can keep all that kind of stuff that goes with it, but we just want Jesus to be the main focus of everything now, right? So that's why it's called Christmas. It's the Mass of Christ. So they still keep everything, right? The idea of us putting up wreaths and putting up trees and decorating with all kinds of greenery is very, very pagan. We know that the Vikings did this. We know that they were bringing in evergreens into the house during the Yule period as a way of kind of recharging life back into their home and then by extension into the world itself. So all that stuff that we do right now, all that stuff with Christmas trees and putting the wreath on the door, that is all from pagan elements. But the reason why we do it now is because Jesus has now been interjected into these traditions, and that's why we do. But without our pagan origins, we would not have any of this fun stuff. We would not be going out and cutting down Christmas trees or anything of that nature.
Interesting.
Mm.
I never knew where that came from. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting stuff to me. I mean, so Krampus, is that So it's the same story as Santa. Like, oh, Krampus is going to come on this certain date, and if you're not good, you're gonna get. I mean, do people still believe in that? Like, still practice that, or
Yeah,
is
oh, sure. Well, I mean, I think that in the minds of kids in these different countries, that it's still part of who they are, right? And it's something to be feared as well. And we know even today in places like Pennsylvania and around the United States that people do have Krampus celebrations, right? And we even had a movie come out not too long ago about Krampus. But in those cultures where Krampus was part of the integral way of life and part of the traditions and celebrations, most certainly he's still a very familiar part of that tradition. So what happens though is that he's moved away from Christmas Day because that's reserved for Christ himself. So he's moved to St. Nicholas Day. So it doesn't have the same religiosity attached to it, right? So they kind of have their own little day where we're really not pretending it's anything religious. We're just pretending that it's fun. And this is whenever kids get gifts or they get, coal in their stocking or whatever. So this is the time whenever Krampus comes about. But because he was like a satyr, right? He has these goat-like horns, and he it walks upright, so it's kind of like this wild man
scary?
imagery as well too. Yeah, it's scary, right? But because it looks so remarkably like the Judeo-Christian view of the devil, that he has now been cast as kind of this satanic figure that goes around with Saint Nicholas, kind of like being his lapdog in a way, because Saint Nicholas is all good. Therefore, he would not punish anybody. So now that role was taken up by Krampus, who will gladly punish children.
Which sounds terrible.
It is terrible. It is terrible.
And
I
I can't
mean,
believe Saint Nick would hang out with him.
yeah, right. Well, I mean, what are you going to do about the naughty children? However, what are you going to do about that? Now, there is some speculation in the world of the folklore that Krampus actually was based upon a man. I don't ascribe to this, but this is one of the theories. So there was a gentleman in a small town, and children started to disappear, and the character of Saint Nicholas kind of became like a detective, sort of, and he was able to track down where these children were, and he finds them in this man's house, in a big barrel, because the man was making them into sausages. So there was this idea of cannibalism involved.
Oh,
And yeah, so St. Nicholas discovers what this man was doing. He finds this big vessel of children, right? And he opens the lid, and the dead children are resurrected and come out of it at the command of the saint. So some folklorists suggest that Krampus was based upon this character and then was also blended in with other versions of Krampus as well too, which may be the case. That seems possible to me. But I think that we are going back even further whenever Krampus becomes this kind of wild green man figure, this kind of nature figure that is there to punish those who are going against, um, you know, uh, going against whatever kind of rules exist in society.
so Krampus has had different forms.
Sure, yeah. So I think the man-like form that we have may stem from these other kind of boogeymen that were said to, capture children and take them away and stuff. But I think that but Krampus is definitely uh, an amalgamation of these boogeymen as well as these nature spirits as well.
Interesting. I never I really honestly just started learning about Krampus maybe a few years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I never had heard about Krampus before. Um and you know, it's interesting to see, when I was that's why I was asking. I'm like, do people still like how we when we were little, we thought Santa was coming. Are there still children that think Krampus is coming? You
Oh,
know?
sure. Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Again, like I said, it's in different places of the world. So you can imagine on December 4th, on St. Nicholas Day, you are waiting for your presents that day. That's whenever the presents come about. So December 25th becomes just a religious holiday in very many places around the world. So the children are really, really excited for what will be coming up this Saturday. So as they listen for Santa Claus to come around, there's also this bit of a chill that runs down their spine as well too. Have they been bad enough that Krampus is also going to be visiting them as well?
Interesting. Now, Ron, do you know of any besides Scrooge? Because obviously Scrooge, is a Christmas classic. My favorite is the one with Bill Murray, Scrooged. I love that movie. It's one of my favorites. Um, are there any other ghost stories that come out of history, maybe prior to Ebenezer Scrooge? That maybe would
Yeah.
have inspired Ebenezer Scrooge.
Right. So there are definitely, and there. Let me see how I can put this delicately. They're not very fun reads at all. They're kind of bland. They're typically Victorian because really the only thing that's really survived to us to this day are the Victorian ghost stories because they were written down. The oral tradition has a way of allowing us to look back into the past and see that people told such stories, but the preservation of these stories is very few and far between. So we do know that the Victorians had stories, and it usually has to do with some sort of untimely death. There was one story whenever the children were visiting this estate over Christmas, and one of their playmates, they kept on playing with, they found out later that it was a ghost that they were playing with, and he had died, decades earlier. So the ghost act as a way of putting light onto current and future events, the same way that Dickens used his ghost to do it, right? That if things don't go or if things continue to go as they are, you're not only going to affect yourself, but you're going to affect the world around you. And that's really what their purpose was. That again, when we talked earlier about ghosts coming in during these times of the year, whenever the velvet's at its thinnest, they can bring intelligences concerning, crops and concerning all the stuff that's going to be happening in the future. Well, that's an agricultural society. Now, what happens is the ghosts are coming in and telling people what they are going to be experiencing if they continue to live the life that they live. And in the guise of Scrooge, the ghosts were basically coming to him and saying that you have been a bad person, and if you continue to be this bad person, it's going to not only going to affect you, it's going to affect all these families around you as well too. And that's something very beautiful. I mean, of course, this is alluding back to its pagan origins, but it also carries on the tradition that these times of the year are special, not so much because of the holiday associated with it, but because it is just this particular time of the year. This is whenever strange things happen, and this is whenever we get knowledge that is usually hidden from us.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, how many times has the new year is supposed to be the end of life as we know it,
That's
right?
right.
You know what I mean? So it's like everybody. So, but that goes against the actual new year, doesn't it?
Mhm. It does. It does.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the reason why, do you know why we call January January?
No, no.
Did you freeze up? You might
Am
have
I
a freeze
frozen?
up.
Am I frozen?
Yep, you're back. You're back now. You're back
Okay.
now. Yeah. So why do we call January January?
Why?
Okay, so we have a Roman god, and I do know that you like this Roman mythology stuff. We had a Roman god named Janus, And guess what? He had two faces, one looking forward and one looking behind. So this was why Janus now takes the month of January, because it's a time when we can look behind us and a time to look forward as well. And that's what the
Oh,
ghosts were doing for Ebenezer Scrooge. Hey, come here, buddy. Let's go look at the way your life used to be and see where it's headed. So that kind of tradition goes back as far as the Romans.
so how cool is January 1st, the new year? And people
Right.
make new year resolutions because they're looking forward, they're looking, you're leaving the past behind and you're looking
That's right.
forward. So that's interesting. This is why I love
Yeah.
having you on. You know everything.
No, I appreciate that, but you bring it out on me. We have a good time to talk about this kind of stuff, and I hope people are interested because I am so utterly, enamored by stories that people have told. I'm glad that I'm alive here and now in the 21st century, and we can talk about these stories that are thousands of years old.
Okay, what's your favorite?
Wow, that's a good question. So I was raised Catholic. I'm still practicing Catholic, and so as far, and it's a shame because we talk about like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which is a wholly modern account, made up by Montgomery Ward to sell things. So he was a commercial enterprise, and but those kind of stories, I do like the underdog that is somehow able to. Um, you know, uh, Kind of buck destiny and get to where he needs to be just because of the goodness in his heart. But I mean, I guess I'm a sucker for the little drummer boy. I'm a sucker for Nestor the long-eared donkey. These are some of my favorite stories because what we're doing whenever we talk about the heat miser, if you can remember him,
Yes.
that was, yeah, and Rudolph and Baby New Year and Frosty the Snowman. This is all part of our myth development, right? So in this long history of of how we view this particular time of the year, now we add things like Frosty the Snowman, and there's magic in it as well too, right? It brings things to life in a time when everything is dead. We now see that there's a magic in the air and new life is returning. I love that kind of stuff. But we are in the process of creating myths for the future. And I do not doubt that in a couple hundred years from now, there will be a podcast whenever people are talking about Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the same way we were talking about Krampus and the Wild Hunt that we did previously tonight.
Yeah. I have to tell you though, Frosty the Snowman, when I was little, I cried. It made me
It,
very sad.
Yes, yeah, no, I do. I see what you're talking about, but you see also, Frosty is also a sacrificial figure as well too. He gives up his life in order so other ones may live, right? But he also will come back again, right? There's this resurrection that's part of not only the Christian narrative, but also the narrative of nature itself, that nothing truly dies. This is only a downtime when things are hidden, but will soon enough be revealed.
That's awesome.
Mm.
So totally gonna go over on this side of things really quick, the Catholic side of things, because I remember when I am a non-practicing Catholic, but I did, do, at a later age, went through all my stuff, the communion and all that, everything. But I remember, in class and everything, learning, there's a reason the candy canes are red and white. And then there was a reason for the 12 days of Christmas. I think at some period of time, which you would know more in detail about this than I would, but there was a period of time where children were not allowed to practice, weren't allowed to, read the Bible, weren't allowed to do anything like that. So they came up with ways to worship Jesus and worship God that the people that weren't allowing them to do so wouldn't know. So the
Right.
12 days of Christmas is actually, you know, all the things that they're saying are meanings taken from the Bible. If
Right. Right.
I'm remembering correctly.
Right. No, that's true. So, and this is whenever we talk about, people not being able to practice their faith, we're talking about things that are really, really late. I mean, we're talking about like in the 1500s, right? So this isn't ancient history whatsoever. This is the time whenever, somebody comes onto the throne of England and says, I'm Catholic, so all the Protestants are going to be burned at the stake. And then a couple years later, that person is killed, and another person comes onto the throne and says, I'm Protestant, so all the Catholics are going to be burned at the stake. So, this idea, this kind of religious schizophrenia that's going on, what should I believe? What shouldn't I believe? Leads people to kind of mask certain beliefs, right? So, one of the ideas is the 12 days of Christmas, that each one of those gifts represents something from the Catholic Church that we have to be very quiet about, but we can still pass the message along, right? And also the candy cane, if you turn it upside down, well, right side up, it looks like a shepherd's crook, right? The same thing, whenever you hear about, God is my shepherd, I shall not want. The same type of thing that we're talking about there. But if you turn it upside down, it now forms the J in Jesus, and the white represents purity, and the red stripes represent the blood. So we have all these kind of things already within those symbolisms, right? That's the symbolism of this particular time of year, alluding back to whenever we could not practice our faith the way we want to because somebody next door didn't like the way we were praying. So it
Yeah.
could mean that we could die.
I mean, and technically, if you think about it, let's just say, that, Jesus was more, but I mean, Jesus was probably one of the first ghost stories
Mm,
to come.
mm,
He died and rose again, right?
that's right.
So he, you know, I always I'm like, I say to my husband all the time because he's a religious person. I'm like, so okay, so he rose again. I'm like, and then what happened? What did he just disappear?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I'm
No, I
thinking
do.
of it as he died and then
Mm,
he rose again. So I find it because a lot of people say, well, I was Catholic and we're raised not to believe in that kind of stuff and this and that,
mm.
but you believe that somebody died and rose again. That's a spirit. That's a ghost. That's a spirit. Like he died and he rose again. And I'm like,
Right.
if you believe that, how could you say that it couldn't happen?
Right. So I think what you said is very pertinent, and that's one of the things, one of the examples that I give whenever I'm confronted with this, because a lot of people simply believe that if we acknowledge that a supernatural exists, somehow we're doing a disservice to God, and that is indeed not the case. I think if anything, we're showing how varied God's creation actually is. But one of the things that I point out is, how do you believe in ghosts? Well, whenever Jesus rose from the dead, what he did was he had to continually prove to his disciples that he was not a ghost, right? So he would eat something that ghosts don't do, or he would have people touch him and see that he was real. So the reason why he had to prove that he was still flesh and blood is because ghosts exist, right? He wanted to prove that he was not a ghost. And even whenever he was walking on water, the first thing that the disciples thought was, we're seeing a ghost. So whenever you look at that stuff in the Bible, how can you say that ghosts don't exist whenever the gospel writers were saying that they do indeed?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know I went around that in a weird way, but it's there. You know what
that's
I
right.
mean? And that's like a little, and for me, like that's to me, I'm like, well, you know, I think it all ties into each other. Like when you think about Christmas and the spirits and you know what I mean, is that which is, you know, I find it interesting that Scrooge has become such a like there's been really no other. I mean, besides like Scrooge has just been redone so many times, but there's never been another, except for the Nightmare Before Christmas, which,
Right.
you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
there's never been another. Yeah, there's never been another classic. I think that that is the case. There have been
Well,
attempts
Haunted
at it.
House. Yeah, but is that's
Yeah,
not a
yeah,
Christmas.
but Scrooge just makes such a point. Um, he's such a despicable character. We really want to see him fail. And whenever I think that he does have this revelation at the end, it's kind of like the Grinch. The we see him having this revelation as well too, when his heart enlarges and becomes two sizes too big or whatever. He is indeed a Grinch character as well too. But we like this idea that this time of the year we can be horrible human beings, but if we allow ourselves to change, nobody will remember the bad things. They'll only remember the good things that we're doing.
Hmm. Yeah. When did the Grinch is fairly new?
Oh yeah, I think probably the '60s. I think that probably no more than 60 years old.
Yeah, I mean, and is that like, oh yeah, Home Alone. Yes, Home Alone's a
Yeah,
Christmas movie. I mean, like spirit wise and ghosty wise, movies. You know what I mean? It's just been Scrooge, really.
right,
Um,
right.
but yes, Home Alone is a very good movie. But um, shoot, I forget what I was gonna say.
We have Gremlins as well too. Gremlins was a
Oh,
Christmas movie.
Gremlins.
Yeah,
Yes, Gremlins was a
yeah,
Christmas movie, but it
that's
but
right.
it still didn't deal with ghost type.
Right. We
It
get
was just
closer to the paranormal, though. We get closer to the paranormal, I think, whenever we talk about that. But I think one of the reasons why um, nowadays it just doesn't make commercial sense. If wait, I will take that back a little bit. So last Christmas, the movie Nosferatu debuted on Christmas Day. And this year, there's a movie about a werewolf that's going to debut on Christmas Day. So we do sometimes see this in our economy that certain scary movies will come out on Christmas Day. But one of the reasons why I don't think like Hallmark is doing them or anything is because it just doesn't make a lot of financial sense, right? People want to see pretty young couples gathered around a brightly lit Christmas tree in front of a fire and exchange extravagant presents. And that's what people want to see, right? They don't really want to see the bad side of everything. Christmas is one that's supposed to be joy. And it's almost kind of like a manufactured joy because whenever you look at the world around you, there's really not a lot of fa la la going on. But I think by taking into account, especially doing a show like this, by taking into account to show us that not it hasn't been like this all the time, right? That with this holiday season, with this Yuletide season, there was always some dread to go along with it. Whether we're talking about the Wild Hunt, or we're talking about Krampus, there's always another side to this coin as well. And it's really kind of shows us how we are in humanity, right? We can be little less than angels, or we can be horrible human beings as well too that has done the most outrageous things to our own kind. And I think that of anything, Christmas is a time of the speculation, right? It's a time to look back, kind of reevaluate who we are, and then take a moment to pause and decide how and if we are going to change and how we're going to come about that resolution. I think that's what this time of the year represents. And as we look forward to December 21st and that a little bit more light comes into the world each day, we can be a part of that light as well too. We can share our light with everybody around us, and we can really make this a great Christmas season, whether you believe in Christ or not.
Yeah. Um, Reel it back really quick. You threw in
Uh-huh.
did you say wild hog?
A wild hunt.
Oh, wild hunt. I know you said wild
Yeah.
hog. I'm like, wait
No,
a
no,
minute.
no, no, no. Boy, that takes me back to my bachelor days, Taryn. But yes,
The
yes, but
wild hunt. You're saying it was almost like, is it almost that was when you weren't outside and,
Right, right. This was in Scandinavian countries, in the mountains where a sudden storm could arise and you might not be found until spring, right? So it's kind of like a prohibition about going out after dark, especially in the wintertime, because we don't know what might happen.
right, right. Why did they call it a wild hunt?
Well, hold on one second. I'm now having more. Hold on one second. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're
My phone, because I'm doing my phone right now, because I tried on a computer, but it wouldn't allow me on earlier. So now every now and then I get a call, but
oh,
whatever. But they called it the Wild Hunt because it was as if Odin was taking along this a group of entities that seemed to be
right.
sweeping across the landscape, hunting. Whatever came in their path, they would take it up with them.
So that would be the reason that they didn't want to go outside, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
because the
okay,
natural world, the world of storms, was now personified as something that was supernatural.
gotcha. Okay, I know you explained that, but now I'm understanding why.
That's,
Because wild hunt, I think like the purge. Like the second you
yeah,
were like one night a year,
right,
this thing
right.
happens. Um,
That's a great analogy, though. That's truly the case. Yeah.
yeah, where you wouldn't go. Oh my god, that would be the scariest thing ever. There's no way
Uh,
I would hide. And I would.
Absolutely.
Oh, um. So, what is your favorite Christmas movie?
Um, wow, that is a hard one. I always like the Grinch. I, there's a lot in Charlie Brown's Christmas that I like as well too. But as far as movie goes, wow, that's a good one. I don't know. Uh, Besides Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which I've always loved ever since I've been a kid, I don't feel nostalgic about any other ones besides those ones.
Yeah, I mean, I love, like I said, I love Scrooge, but that's got to be the one with Bill Murray. I
Bill
love
Murray,
that.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yes, that's right. That's
I
right.
love that one. And A Christmas Story is a classic.
Oh, Christmas Story. I actually got the chance to see that at the movie theater whenever it came out. And I know that on Christmas Day they play it for like 24 hours. And I will watch hours upon hours of it.
Wow. So my friend Dan is suggesting Violent Night. Actually, really well done movie. It sounds scary.
It does. It sounds like there
Uh,
might be blood.
Kristen says The Grinch, the only
Yes,
acceptable answer.
I love it.
I don't think she's gonna kill me for this, but I don't think I've ever actually watched the Grinch movies in their entirety. So
Right.
I know that I have couple of friends that are huge Grinch fans, but I
Mm.
don't know. I'm more of a fan of the Bill Murray and the
Right.
Scrooged.
Right. Well, I do not like the Grinch movie. I'm talking about the cartoon
Oh,
with the classic. Oh, who was that? I'm, uh, I'm not thinking here properly. Who was the narrator of the Grinch? Boris Karloff. That classic deep voice of the original Frankenstein. You can't beat it. It had its creepy moments.
did I say okay? I'll try. I'll see if I can find it and see. I'll watch it.
Yeah. It's 22 minutes long.
Is
Dr.
it?
Seuss. Yeah, you can't beat it.
You're out of the herd. She's kicking me out. um. Well, just so you know, McDonald's has Grinch Happy Meals out now.
I'm
So,
well aware of that, my dear. Yes, ma'am.
yeah, yeah. I haven't gotten one yet, but you get a little prize in there.
It will happen. It will happen.
Um, is there anything else you would like to add to our spooky Christmas, Halloween, Halloween, spooky Christmas special that we had?
No, no, that is it. As a matter of fact, I think that we had a great conversation. I wish you a Merry Christmas, and like always, and it's going on about 5 years in a row now. I wake up on Christmas morning, I make my way under the tree, and as of yet, there has been no peach wrap underneath it or waiting for me. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this might be different this year. So
Would you would probably run if there were six peaches under your tree. You wouldn't know
no,
what to
no.
do.
Well, if there was six peaches underneath my tree, I would tell you this: I would die a very happy man on Christmas Day.
I love you. You
Oh,
rock, you rock. I love having you on. We have to make this more of a regular thing because you're just brilliant. I love you. I think you're
well, I
awesome.
appreciate it too, and I feel the same about you. And I really think that one of my favorite shows I've ever been on was the one whenever we were talking about, the antiquity, the ancient world. We didn't talk about ghosts or anything like that. We talked about really cool stuff. And whatever
Yes.
you want to talk about, and you're bored, and a guest drops out, keep me in mind. I'd be more than happy to jump on in and plug myself in.
Oh my gosh, yes. And we can talk about whatever you want because your knowledge is very vast in the universe. It
Well,
just
I appreciate that.
amazes
I
me.
appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Please, everybody, go check out Ronald Murphy Jr. Should I say? Where can people find you and your books and stuff? I mean, are your books still available and all that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can go to Amazon and find my books. You can find them, anything you can find on Amazon. Some of my books are actually available at Walmart as well, too. So you can go on Walmart.com and find a few of my books as well. And of course, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram and all those cool places as well. So yeah, if you need to find me, you'll definitely be able to find me someplace on social media.
Do you have any? I know you do attend some cons. Sometimes you're a speaker. Sometimes you're there. Do you have any events coming up?
Not no, not until the closer we get to spring.
Yeah.
But I will be in March. I will be teaching two classes. If you're in Western Pennsylvania, I will be teaching two classes at the Community College of Westmoreland County, and one is going to be on cryptozoology, and the other was going to be on ghosts.
Wow, that sounds
Yeah,
fun.
I'm
Yeah,
excited.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So they are they do they have a course for it, or is it just like something they signed up for like a lecture or a seminar?
No, it's a brief course, so it's going to be 3 hours for 3 days, and it's one of those kind of courses.
Cool. I like that
Yeah,
they're doing that.
I just got to do a talk on the squonk as well as creatures, cryptozoological creatures of the Appalachians. I got to do that at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and I was thrilled to see a packed lecture hall with students, with college students and professors coming to hear something that is considered, supernatural and or cryptozoological. I was glad to see everybody coming together in a college setting to have a frank, intelligent discussion about these things.
What was the audience um, open minded to the things you were saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I talked about a little front here in Pennsylvania called the squonk, which is one of the things we should do a show on too, because it's really a fun little creature. But I talked about the squonk and its relation to the economical or the ecological perspective. So I try to tie in that a lot of times the way we see the cryptozoological impacts us in the very real world, whether you believe that these are flesh and blood animals or not.
Interesting. You are a believer in
Sure,
are you a believer in Bigfoot?
sure. Yeah, I'm very romantic whenever it comes to this kind of stuff. I definitely still have a deep love and appreciation for Bigfoot. And without Bigfoot, I would not be here because that's my gateway drug into other things. But yeah, Bigfoot and all that other kind of stuff. I really hope that there are things out there prowling about at night, looking in people's windows, and that they're going undiscovered because we need that.
Yeah, yeah. Because without that, there'd be no us.
There would be no us
We wouldn't
because
be doing what
everything
we're doing
about
right
us.
now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we are creative creatures, and we need things put us in our place, right? And if we continue to understand that there are things out there that we don't know yet, right? Things that are still a mystery that will always keep us very wide eyed and curious about the world around us. And we need that forever and ever.
Yes, I agree. And that's why you should still believe in Santa Claus.
I do still believe in Santa Claus. You better gosh darn believe I do. You want Krampus to come after me, for goodness sake?
What?
I don't want Krampus to come after me.
No, no way.
Exactly, exactly,
He's scary.
exactly. That's right. That's right. Yeah, the only time that I would ever even slightly want to think about being beaten is if you were wearing a leather outfit and you had a whip.
Right.
That's the only. That's
And
the
not
only
by
time I
a
was
big
thinking.
and not by a big goat-like scary
No, heavens,
creature.
no, 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 no,
Right.
not at all.
Ron, thank you again. And chat, thank you for being here. Thank you everybody for joining us. If you have any questions for Ron, he's more than happy to just reach out to him and we will set another date for you to come on again and we'll talk
I
about
The squonk. I cannot wait, my dear. Seriously, if I do, I'm sure that I will message you between now and then. But I hope you and your husband have a very, very Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to all
same.
those paranormal peaches out there as well too. And if I'm not on before the new year, let's do something going into the new year.
Absolutely. I'm all about it. Thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you.
You're the
Bye.
best.
Thank you.
Good night. Well, thank you everybody for joining us and thank you for joining me. I don't have anything lined up. So I might just come on next week and just do a open mic or do a something like that and who knows, or maybe I might get somebody to come on in the meantime. But oh, thanks, Big Ben. Sorry. The unknown is always a great explorer. The Bigfoot or the Yowie or the skunk ape. Paranormal always a great explorer in the possibilities. Absolutely. And, thank you for coming on or for joining us. Um, and yeah, so I hope everybody has if I'm not on next week, I just want to put it out there. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday and a safe, happy, and healthy one to you and yours. And you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds for Paranormal Brew. So I want to thank everybody for being here. Have a good night, and until next time, sweet dreams.